Howdy, and welcome to another episode of Fridays with Phil. I'm Phil, obviously. Doug, if you've been doing this more than once. If you are new, yes, I am Phil. Anyhow, let's see, this week's episode is episode 13, and interestingly, it is the last episode that involves previous blog posts. So originally when I set this up for YouTube, it was all to kind of go back over the previous blog posts and get those in for you guys so that, because there's valuable content in the blog, and if you're not up to reading it, then I created a video for the majority of those posts, at least as far as the ones that I felt were still relevant to bring you up to speed on. A couple of them I merged into, one big giant video, where I covered both the main topic that I covered and mentioned the other topic that I more or less skipped over some of, but I still hit, the important points. So we're going to do that, I think, one more time here? Let me make sure. We're going to do that one more time here, just because the one last post that I'm skipping had to do with... it had to do with me leaving and moving on to another city or town to take a job, and having to leave friends and family and stuff like that, which I'm not always very good at. So I wrote about it at that point, but then it turned out that the reason that I was going to move didn't really work out, so it didn't end up happening, so I haven't moved or shifted at this point. I didn't feel like it was necessary to go back through that whole thing because it hasn't actually happened. If you want to go read the post, go to the blog, read the post, it's fine, it's there. I'm just not going to cover it in detail because we have, as part of this episode, the rest of the other post that is still up that I want to go over. So it's going to be interesting once we get past this week, because that will mean that the content is then going to be based on more current things. Not that these things aren't terribly current. I mean, this one was written in May, so it's still kind of current. And I've interspersed some of the more current stuff over the past couple of weeks just because I want to get it out there, because it's important, A, that, I vent, and B, that, you guys get what you need. I need to express those things, and I want you to hear about it and see what you think. And hopefully, you guys have been getting something out of this for the last 12 episodes, on some level or another. So anyways, it'll be interesting to see where we go. I have no idea where the content's going to go after this, but it'll go somewhere, so we'll just see. Anyhow, I'm going to go ahead and get started with this week's episode. So this week I'm covering patience and wisdom and destroying the trap. So at one point I heard something that particularly struck my interest. And I wasn't sure at first how it should be addressed. It's a concept that could be pulled in many different directions depending on who is doing the pulling and for what purposes they're doing that pulling. As with all my other posts here and on the blog and the videos here on YouTube, this one for sure comes with this disclaimer that the following content stems from my viewpoint. It does not by any means speak for everyone in the same or similar life circumstances or circumstances that are different from myself. However, I hope it is a valued position nonetheless, as I speak as a small part. Sorry, it's written a little weird here. I just did it. I hope it is a valued position nonetheless, as I speak as a small part of that group that this particular topic is addressed to. The topic being that of are we as disabled people somehow trapped within ourselves? There are some who would yell in answer to that of, you can do anything if you try hard enough. I would counter that by saying that it is not a matter of how hard one tries, but the way in which the trying is done. If a method can be created or adapted to allow me to do something in my own way with success, then I can do it, given that I have enough practice and training put in. But if the method is incorrect for me, then it will not matter how much effort goes in, I will still fail. I have found that people tend to gravitate towards this phrase of being wheelchair bound or chair bound for some reason, but yet I get in and out of my chair every day for various different reasons. So clearly I'm not bound to it. Here's the thing, am I trapped in my chair if I need it to get around? Are you trapped in your car or to your bike because you need it to get from one point to another? Of course not. Are blind people trapped because they cannot use their eyes to see? Something tells me the answer is probably no, because I have known blind people who see more completely than most other people because they use all of their senses that they do have to build a mental picture of what the world looks like. They notice things that I sometimes hadn't even thought of before they brought it up, all because they were paying more attention to the other things around them. In many cases, in my own observations, encountering someone who is different. So when a random person encounters someone else who is different from them, the person that realizes this difference tends to, in some cases, look at it on the surface level, and then they make some sort of quick calculation about the person in every category that is important to that observer. So basically the person that notices, hey, that guy over there is different from me, is analyzing that based on a bunch of things at the surface, just by maybe how they look or how they move or how they don't, maybe how they speak at first, or, just the general surface things, if you're going to say that someone is different in a way that, a condescending way of different here. And sometimes I'm the one that's being observed by that other person. And it's funny because I end up doing or saying something that the person observing me was completely not expecting that I would do or be able to do, because they had already set limitations on what they thought I could do. So the other question that I get that relates to all of this is people they want to know how I'm not trapped in my mind as well as my body. Generally it comes across as, how are you not depressed or angry about having to deal with this all the time? Sometimes I even get the question of, or just the statement, it must suck to not know what it's like to walk freely or to be able to run or whatever. And that's interesting because generally, for the most part at least, I do know what that's like. Now, I know that because I've been observing people and listening to other people talk about it and seen them do it for 2 decades now. I don't say this to try and sound smarter than anyone else. I know that there are plenty of people who are smarter than me and have more experience in this. And I know that. And this is not about whether people who are disabled are smarter than those who aren't disabled. It's about a different perspective and mindset. I've experienced things and gone through things that hopefully no one else will ever have to, ever. But because of those experiences, I focus on different elements of a situation or problem than most other people do on a regular basis who don't have a disability. And there are still differences in perspective among those of us who do have disabilities. So, with the walking thing, like, well, okay, I have walked assisted, so that's, one side of it, so I do actually know what the motion feels like, and what it looks like, and plus I've seen, thousands of people over the last 20 plus years, walk around, and people talk about it, and, they talk about how much effort it takes or doesn't take or whatever, and, I've observed all of that, so I have an idea of what it's like to get up and walk around. It would probably feel similar, except that I wouldn't have to, be assisted by anything else to make it happen. My muscles would just do it. So I can get somewhat of a sense of what that's like, even if it's not a complete, a complete translation from me to you. It's close. So are we trapped in our minds? I like to think that even those people that are considered to be trapped in their minds because of some debilitating mental condition, that they've been given some other gift that I haven't been made aware of, that allows them to be free from whatever constraints there might be, except for the ones that they impose themselves. And that's just one of those things, like, I don't know what is me to judge, what they can and can't do, and, can think and don't think, and, the things that they experience, because I'm not them, and I'm not directly experiencing those things. So, for me to say, oh, well, I know that, that person has X or Y, mental disability, therefore they cannot do this or that or the other. And, that's not right, because people think that because I'm in the chair, that there are things that I can't do, that I know I can do, or that I found a way to do, that, just because someone else doesn't think that it's possible doesn't mean that I can't do it. So I don't, or at least I try not to, project that onto people with any sort of other disability. So if they've been given a gift to handle it and to deal with it in a certain way, then awesome, and I'm not going to take that away from them. Because, at this point, there's still so much that we don't understand about how the brain works. So there's really no way for me to say, or anyone else at this point, really, to be able to say that it isn't possible. Because, trust me, I've seen impossible things happen. They happen all the time. So, yeah. Now, I don't consider myself to be an expert in much, or really hardly anything. But the one area that I know I have a wealth of knowledge in is patience. When you've truly practiced, when you've been almost forced, just based on the way that circumstances go, to consistently use and practice using patience for as many years as I have, it becomes a necessary tool for a great many things. I don't think I am wise because I have a superior level of knowledge or more years of experience than others, but because I have had to learn more in depth than most what it means and what it takes to be patient. Patience allows me to hear, see, and feel things that other people miss because they're moving too quickly. If I can be disciplined enough to take it one step at a time, one rotation after another, then I'll learn. I'll get stronger. I'll understand it better. And mindset is key. But if I don't have patience, then that key won't fit in the lock and nothing will happen. If I don't have patience, then I can't have the right mindset. That's basically what I'm trying to say. I know I can't do everything or anything that I want, because no human can do absolutely anything or everything they want, because the world doesn't work that way. We're not all-knowing beings and all-capable beings. So when someone says, hey, you can do anything if you put your mind to it, now, some people will say that, yes, that's possible, because they want to hope in the determination of the other person who's being told that, and some people will just flat out tell you that that's just complete crap and that there's no way that that's possible. And we have to be careful saying that, because no, you can't necessarily just be an astronaut because you just willed yourself to be an astronaut, right? But if you took the proper steps to learn and to grow in the right ways, then sure. But we don't all have the time to grow to a masterful level in everything that we may want to do within the course of our lives, because they're just too short. So being able to say that you can do anything, okay, trying to walk up to the roof of a building and saying, hey, I can fly off of this, if I just jump off it because I believe that I can fly, no, not unless you've developed some kind of system to assist you to do that. It doesn't mean that it can't be done, it just means that there has to be more to it. So we have to be careful when we say that anything can be done, or that we can do, everything that we want, because there's still that time limitation, and adaptation is key. So if we leave out the adaptation, it's going to be a lot harder, or we're going to make it impossible for ourselves if we don't adapt, because it's just the way it is. So it just doesn't work like that. But the things that people say that I'm good at, or that I'm, I've heard, Phil, you're a genius at this. Okay, well, I'm not a genius. It's just that I have spent hours and hours and hours practicing whatever that skill is or that thing is. And then I watch how other people do the same thing, both in the right way and what's perceived to be the wrong way. I say perceived in this case because designating something as the wrong way means that someone has found one way of doing something, a way that works for them, and then they labeled any other method as incorrect because it's not the method that they use, or it's something that's unknown to them, or something like that. And that doesn't necessarily mean, though, that there are not other ways of doing it. It just means that that person who has said that, hey, there's a wrong way to do this, hasn't thought of that other method. Or maybe there are other elements that could be included to make the process work differently. And at times I've managed to identify one or more of these different methods and then successfully apply it to whatever it is that's, trying to be done. And then sometimes people are like, wow, I didn't know that you could do it that way. And it's like, well, that's because I took it from a different approach and I thought about it a bit differently. And so this is how I'm going to get there. We're going to end up at the same place, but we took two different ways to get there. All of this to say that I would rather possess this different way of thinking, an element of wisdom through patience, while being somewhat less flexible or physically bipedal or, just, okay. People ask me sometimes, and it's happened a lot over 20 years, that people are just like, hey, wouldn't you rather walk if there was some way that you could just cure it? And I know I've touched on this, so we're not going to go into the whole thing here because that's in a totally different video. And you can go back and find that. It's in one of the earlier videos. But anyhow, people will come along and they'll be like, hey, if there was some kind of tech or whatever, would you do it? If there was some kind of pill that you could take that would cure you. And it's like, okay, but how much of that does it change me as a person, right? So it depends. Like, if it changes me as a person, because you have to change some element of my brain in order to teach my muscles how to do that, and it's some sort of negative effect on my brain, then no, I don't want to do that. And I know that sounds crazy, but I would rather have the patience and the wisdom and the ability that I have currently than just to be able to walk and not shake with muscle spasms and have tight muscles. Those things I can deal with more or less in one way or another, and I have already, and I'm used to it. So changing all of that just to be able to run down the street, it doesn't appeal to me. Now, if you have some way to change that without, messing with who I am, then sure, maybe I'll consider it. So I hope that you guys, as viewers and as listeners and maybe even as readers of the blog, will take time to learn the patience to dream with the rest of us about what is truly possible for all of us, so that we can continue to grow in the best ways. Now, like I said at the beginning of this, I don't know what next week is going to hold. We'll just see. But there'll be something. I'll come up with something. And hopefully you guys will continue to enjoy the series. And I'll see you guys next week. Peace.